Hey, it's Quadix here. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe, comment Q or any other comments you may have. The link to the Discord and my Instagram will be in the description. Check them out. When this video gets to 500 likes, I'll upload the next part. Roll the intro. Naruto barely been able to make a shadow clone in time. However, he did it so fast that he doubted someone could have seen him do it, even if they were standing right in front of him. He created the shadow clone with specific orders in mind. As soon as the clone flickered into existence, it vanished from its spot near instantly, flash slipping behind a tree. Then it substituted with the Prime, taking his place inside the sand coffin. It grinned when he thought what Gaara's reaction would have been when he saw the Prime had managed to escape. It was its last thought before dispelling into smoke. Behind the tree, Naruto was preparing his next technique. It was the only thing he could think of that could deal with Gaara's current form, and hopefully it would be the last he would ever have to use against Gaara. Cutting his left thumb, he wiped it against his right palm. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. Summoning jutsu. Before the exam, he had calculated that he required exactly a quarter of his reserves to summon Takeshi. However, after Kurama had increased his reserves, the amount had dropped significantly. The quarter of his previous amount of reserves that he previously required had now become 2/3 of the same quarter, which meant an entire 1/6 of his reserves. Of course, Naruto had roughly estimated this with Kurama's help. In a huge blast of smoke, Naruto towered above the tree line, easily standing a head above the tanuki on top of Takeshi's head. He had his arms crossed as he looked down on Shikaku's form. It gave him a sense of authority, a sense of power. Takeshi blinked as he appeared with his arms crossed. He quickly deduced that Naruto had summoned him. "Ah, it seems you require my assistance, Naruto." Naruto lightly laughed on top of Takeshi's head. "Very acute observation, Takashi-san." Takeshi-san sounded like the rat for a second. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Takeshi chuckled as his summoner's cheek before turning a serious yet still a bit amused eye forward. "Ichibi no Sakuka I don't know how I read it so bad. Shikaku, huh? You sure you have an eye for strong opponents, Naruto? This might turn out to be a good fight after all." Takeshi grinned, his sharp teeth menacingly coming into view as he grasped the katana strapped onto his left side of his waist in anticipation. Naruto nodded and explained his plan to the boss of the foxes. Right now, the ninjuriki is in the final state of his transformation, but still in control. Our goal is to influence him enough that he would relish the control over to the tail beast via falling asleep. Once Shikaku's consciousness is in control, I want you to hold him in place while I wake up the host. Once Gaara is awake, I will slap a seal onto him that will cut him off from his tailed beast. Takeshi listened carefully to Naruto's plan and nodded in agreement. He couldn't help but comment, however, "Fighting an opponent like Shikaku at their strongest, you really know how to bring excitement into a fight, Naruto." Takeshi was clearly excited to fight. He did not wait for his opponent to make his move. Naruto was glad he had stuck to Takeshi's head using his chakra. Otherwise, he would have fallen backwards on his butt. Just as Takeshi came within strike distance, Gaara reacted. Shikaku's arms came forward to grab Takeshi's throat, but he wasn't fast enough. Instead of dodging the arm, Takeshi unsheathed his katana, and in one clean stroke, Gaara's entire right arm came straight off. Tamari stared in amusement what Naruto had managed to pull off out of his sleeve. It was a humongous dark blue fox in a white Hiyori, with 7 tails swaying behind magnificently, and it was large enough to tower over the tanuki. "What is that?" she uttered in disbelief. Was it one of Naruto's summons? Sasuke was in a similar state. He was at a loss of words for this. Whatever Naruto had managed to pull off, but whatever it was superior to even the tanuki in size. It was clearly very strong. The 7 swaying tails had fully thrown him off. With the exchange of the words that followed, Sasuke was able to deduce that this was a summon, which meant that Naruto was the holder of a summoning contract. He couldn't hear what Naruto said, but it was clearly a signal to start fighting. Both Sasuke and Temari then proceeded to watch. Utterly dumbstruck and stupefied, the giant blue fox cleanly cut one of Gaara's arms. Takeshi skidded away, destroying a group of trees in his wake and not even noticing. His eyes narrowed as he clutched his blade tightly. His body is denser than I thought. I nearly lost the grip of my blade, he said as he put the katana back in its sheath. We'll have to be more careful now. This should be provocation enough for me to let Shikaku out. Get ready, Naruto. Yeah, Naruto nodded and became braced himself. He carefully watched Gaara as he slowly reattached his arm. Once he had done so, he turned his head towards them. Interesting, he rumbled, causing both Takeshi and Naruto to tense. How interesting, Uzumaki Naruto. They watched as Gaara came out of the giant tanuki head in a ripple, his eyes completely white. Naruto supposed that was because his sight was in the tanuki's eyes. He was slumped, but slowly straightening up. Naruto was further on guard when he saw Gaara smiling a little. He knew what came next, but no matter how many times he saw Gaara smile, it was always unnerving. You're strong, Uzumaki, Gaara said, and Naruto could hear anticipation in his voice. You have matched my every attack with yours, and you were able to overpower me. If only for a little while. I haven't had this much fun in my life. The last shot caused Naruto to feel a bit sad inside. He couldn't help but reflect that this was how he could have ended up. Gaara had been alienated most of his life. He could see that only Temari had attempted to make Gaara feel as close to family as possible, but he had ruthlessly pushed her away. They say that you can learn a lot about a person from fighting them, and it was true. Naruto had seen how Gaara fought. Gaara only fought for himself. He thought that he had no precious people of his own. Well, Naruto was about to give him a smackdown for free, in addition to a reality check. Gaara formed the ram seal. As my gratitude toward you for keeping me entertained, I'll let you see the full power of the sand incarnation. Finding sleep jutsu. For a moment, Gaara remained froze in that pose, mad eyes glaring into Naruto's prepared ones, and then he sagged, arms hanging limply as his head followed forward. Here we go, Takeshi-san, Naruto whimpered to the fox, who hummed low in agreement. Sasuke shivered with a little fear. This wasn't the first time he had watched his teammate take on a stronger opponent than any of them, while he just cowered in the background. Looking up at Gaara's form, he took back his words. Gaara had a lot more chakra than he estimated. To have enough chakra to form a construct like that, he doubted even Naruto had that much chakra. Temari watched carefully as Naruto tackled Gaara at his strongest. As confident as Naruto seemed, she doubted he could scrape victory when Gaara let Shikaku out to fight. But Naruto looked so sure of victory, like he knew exactly what to do. That Temari simply had to trust he knew what he was doing. She couldn't bear to lose both Naruto and Gaara in the same day. Yahoo! I can't do this. Finally, I am out and free! The one-tailed monster opened its enormous jaw, and the high, crazy voice surprised Naruto a bit. He had been imagining a voice similar to Kurama's. Shikaku looked in front of him and cheered, calling in a preparation for attack. Oh, a guy for me to kill already, and it looks like you're related to that freaking Nine-Tails. I don't want to say it. Can I? No, I'm not saying that on YouTube. I'll make mice meat out of you. Naruto winced as Kurama roared in rage inside him. He really couldn't be sure if Shikaku was referring to him or Takeshi. Probably Takeshi, because of his tails. Takeshi gave a challenging grin, full of teeth. Why don't you put those words to test? Let's see how far you can get. Shikaku slapped his large bloated stomach. Wind style Rinkudan. A bullet of air so compressed and pressurized came shooting towards Takeshi, who surprised both Naruto and Shikaku when he deftly used one of his tails to smack away the air bullet at just the right angle. He just shifted its direction a bit, so instead of damaging the landscape, it went flying into the sky behind him. My turn, Takeshi grinned before performing 3 hand seals, ending on Tiger. He took a deep breath. Fire style, great flame technique. An enormous vortex of rapidly expanding flames expelled from his mouth and rushed towards Shikaku. The heat from the blaze was hot enough that even Naruto, who was standing behind the wall of fire, felt it. The entire land of the forest beneath the majestic flame was scorched to ashes. Naruto was willing to bet that the fire was hot enough to turn Shikaku's sand to glass. Shikaku, as soon as he saw the Herculean fire heading towards him, erected a huge wall of sand with his own hand. He could have dodged it normally, but because of its huge bulk, he was too slow to put himself to motion. It was better to have a hand turn to glass rather than any other part of his body. The flames that hit the wall of sand, and for a full 5 seconds, Takeshi kept pumping chakra into his fire, making it hotter in each second. When he finally released the jutsu, both Naruto and Takeshi grinned at the results. Tamari gaped in speechlessness as the wall that Shikaku had erected with his hand had completely melted into hot, molten liquid. The amount of firepower that summoned seemed to have completely absurd and ridiculous. Sasuke was also dumbstruck at the new development. The heat from the summoner's fire had been hot enough to be felt way over where they were standing. He had seen what had happened to the force beneath it, and he almost felt bad for anything standing in front of it. Shikaku winced as he saw his entire hand was now molten sand, which was slowly melting from the solid shape that had formed it into. However, before he could do anything about it, he heard another shout. Wind style! Divine wind! A huge amount of wind was expelled from Takeshi's mouth. It had no shape, it simply was wind blowing at great speeds. Since the sand construct was still melting, Shikaku didn't have enough time to detach himself from it. Takeshi took full advantage of it and chose to cool down the molten sand, transforming it into glass. Shikaku looked at his hand in disbelief. His whole right arm, that was still attached to his body, had become solid glass. It was rather surreal to see. Takeshi laughed. Make mincemeat out of me, huh? Take a look at yourself first. With a speed that even Naruto did not expect from him, he shot forward in 3 quick strides. Naruto was stunned just how quickly Takeshi was able to move. However, his next choice of attack almost had Naruto jumping in joy. Takeshi had reared back his fist and punched right into the strange-shaped wall of glass. Shikaku had no choice but to block the punch with his now wall of glass, formerly wall of sand. It was if he could get rid of the glass, he could form a new hand then he would kill this bastard fox. The glass shattered like, well, glass. It shattered into pieces. I just lost where I was again. Okay. The part of the arm that had become glass was almost up to his shoulder. So almost the entire arm shattered and the tremendous force of under the tremendous force of Takeshi's punch. Shikaku was now visibly panicking. He swung his good left arm, claws outstretched to swipe Takeshi's head off, but Takeshi was quick to counter. Takeshi grabbed the left arm with his right, followed by grabbing the swinging tail that came from Shikaku's right. Takeshi held him in a strong grip, not allowing Shikaku any chance to attack. Well, if you don't count the regenerating arm and the purple ball of no doubt highly destructive chakra that was forming in front of Shikaku's mouth, aimed right into Takeshi's alarmed face. Do it now, Naruto! You really don't want to be at the other end of that thing. Takeshi's warning had a high amount of urgency in it, and Naruto did not want to find out what the ball of chakra did, so he didn't hesitate to act. He directed his chakra into his legs and jumped high. With a grunt, he threw the kunai downwards, aiming it so it lodged right in front of an asleep Gaara. As expected, Gaara's sand came up to catch the kunai, but it was of no consequence. Naruto flashed right in front of Gaara, already in motion of an attack. He caught Gaara's jaw in an earth-shattering right hook, which had so much force behind it that it not only sent Gaara leaning towards his own right, but also knocked a tooth out of his mouth. "Wake up!" The punch sent waves of pain to Gaara's brain, forcing him to wake up. His eyes flew open in agony, just as Naruto sensed the big ball of chakra harmlessly dispelling behind him. Shikaku's yell soon followed. "No, I just came out!" Gaara was now wide awake, but Naruto gave him no chance to attack him with his hand. He used his left hand to roughly grab Gaara by his throat, bringing his face level to his. His fingertips of the right hand lit up in the 5 elemental seal. For the third time in the day, he slapped them right into Gaara's exposed stomach, the usage of chakra making his seal visible. Gaara gasped as all the breath left him, and he momentarily became unconscious. Naruto had successfully managed to cut Shikaku off from Gaara's consciousness. The sand from beneath them began to crumble, and just in seconds the entire body of sand collapsed, making them plummet to earth. Naruto and Gaara would have hit the ground with bone-breaking force if Naruto hadn't managed to grab Gaara mid-air and flash the kunai on the ground. He carefully set Gaara against a tree, and was slightly taken back when Gaara started to stare. He himself had needed a day to wake up when Orochimaru had slapped him with that same seal. Perhaps it was due to Gaara's stronger connection to Shikaku. He already had large amounts of Biju chakra in his system, which helped him wake. Naruto stood over Gaara as the redhead fully opened his eyes, looking disoriented for a second. His eyes widened as he saw Naruto standing over him with an expressionless look on his face. He tried to shift further into the tree. "No, stay away from me," he cried weakly, far too weak to try and move his body. He watched with pure fear as Naruto knelt down. Naruto softened the look on his face. "That pain of being alone, of your life not meaning anything to anyone? I know that pain too well, Gaara." Gaara whispered in confusion. "How?" Naruto's lips twisted into a sad smile. "Because we're alike. I also house a beast like yours." Gaara's confused expression twisted into one of shock. "Then, for all those people, why?" Naruto put a hand on Gaara's tuft of hair. "Because I found people to care for, to protect, who loved me and acknowledged my existence. Those people told me as many times I needed to hear that they loved me. They told me that my purpose in this world was to protect. True power doesn't come from fighting for yourself. It comes when you have someone of your own to protect, Gaara." He ruffled the red hair. "You have people like that too. If you just give them a chance, they would accept you. If you want, I'll be your first friend." Gaara was unable to answer, just staring at Naruto with wide eyes. Naruto chuckled and removed his hand, standing up. They were here anyways. Temari and Kankuro appeared just beside Gaara. The difference was that Kankuro was injured, and still on guard when standing in front of Naruto. He looked at Naruto with a worried expression, knowing that he stood no chance against a guy who still didn't look that exhausted after outright crushing Gaara. Temari on the other hand just stared at Naruto with wide eyes. He had delivered on his promise. He had stopped Gaara without killing him, and she was grateful to him for that. Naruto looked at her and winked. "I promised you, didn't I?" Temari smiled softly and nodded. She was grateful that Gaara hadn't been killed, along with the fact that Gaara hadn't managed to kill Naruto. She didn't know if she could ever repay Naruto for what he had done for her. A hand brushed against her leg, causing her to look down. "Temari, Kankuro, that's enough. Let's go home," Gaara ordered weakly. Kankuro gave a confused look to Temari, who just nodded to comply with the request. He picked Gaara up, supporting him with one hand around his waist and the other holding Gaara's over his shoulder. "Kankuro," Temari said, causing the puppeteer to look at her. "Take Gaara and move. I'll catch up." She did not once break eye contact with Naruto. Kankuro gave her a confused look. "But Temari, I said." Kankuro looked reluctant to leave her behind, but obeyed her nonetheless. He took to the trees, and in a few moments they were just a dot in distance. No doubt, Kankura would wait ahead for her to catch up, but he knew when Temari wanted him to be out of sight, and he wasn't stupid enough to disobey her. Naruto just kept his hands in his pockets as Temari stepped closer. Somehow, he wasn't surprised at all when Temari suddenly grabbed him in a tight hug, her hands going around his waist and her head buried into his chest. Thank you, she was sobbing in his chest. Naruto slowly wrapped his arms around her shoulders. He kissed her head softly, stroking her hair. It's okay, he whispered. He really didn't know what else he could do. Temari tightened her hold on him. Why would you go so far for him? Naruto breathed deeply, trying to decide what to say. He and I, we're not much different. We both share a burden, and we both have been alone in our lives. Me, not as much as him. I just couldn't bear to look at him like he was. He is what I would have been if I had no people of my own. He has people of his own. He has me and Kankuro. Naruto nodded sadly, but he chose to push you away. Well, except the few people I had in my life. It's not too late, Temari. Just keep showing him what love truly means, and he will come to you. Give him another chance to accept. Temari slowly looked up at him with tears glittering in her eyes. Naruto slowly removed his arms from her, stepping back. You should go now. Konoha Shinobi might be here any moment. Temari pursed her lips, but nodded. She turned away, about to jump to the trees, but she hesitated. Naruto waited for Temari to jump away, but she looked hesitating. Temari? He never finished a sentence for a pair of lips came to softly rest on his own. Naruto looked shocked only for a moment, but before he could wrap his arms around her, Temari separated and turned away, taking to the trees. Naruto's hand came to rub on his lips, feeling the taste of her own. He smiled. There was something else in the kiss, something that promised a better future. Still smiling, he turned around, only to freeze on spotting Sasuke, who was carrying Sakura on a piggyback. Sasuke was looking extremely shocked and confused. He didn't know what or how to make sense out of this. What was that? Naruto panicked for a second, but then got a grip and replied, A kiss? What else could it be? He turned around to go and gather his kunai, but Sasuke stopped him. No, I mean, why did she kiss you? Naruto turned around with a frown. I don't know what goes in her head, but what the hell are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to take Sakura and head back to safety? This time, Sasuke surprised Naruto by looking a bit abashed of all things. I think it's a shame, but whatever. He muttered something unintelligibly, causing Naruto to raise an eyebrow. Sorry, couldn't hear you. Come again? I said I couldn't leave you behind, okay? Sasuke snapped, a hint of red on his cheeks. Naruto snorted and walked past the boy. It's rare to see you worry about someone else, but don't worry about me. As long as you have the kunai with you, I can flash to you anytime. Naruto suspected Sasuke had taken the kunai not so Naruto could flash to him, but to decipher the secret behind it. Sasuke wasn't an idiot. He obviously had noticed it in his fight with Gaara, what he used the kunai for, and wanted the jutsu for himself. Too bad for him. In his notes, Minato had written down that he had taken the jutsu to levels that were seemingly impossible. He had developed it so far that in fact, it almost became a sort of an artificial bloodline, a jutsu that could only be used by someone of his blood, and to counting in all the Funjutsu processes that involved locking your chakra at each step. Sasuke mentally flinched at that. He forgot to take into account that Naruto could sense all of his kunai. He had to divert the topic fast because Naruto asked him to give it back. Why did you let them go? That question caught Naruto's attention as he picked the last of the Hiraishin kunai scattered on the ground. He slowly turned to face Sasuke. He opened his mouth to explain why, but stopped at the sudden rush of chakra in his system, as well as memories. What the? Sasuke watched curiously as Naruto's head snapped towards the direction of the stadium, a classic expression of "what?" on his face. What is it? Naruto turned to face Sasuke, a sense of urgency in his voice that wasn't there before. You need to get back to Kakashi right now. He stepped forward and a hand outstretched, probably to send him to Kakashi. Sasuke stepped back. Whoa, you're not sending me back like that. Not until you tell me why. Naruto grit his teeth as more memories flew into his mind. He did not have time for this. I can't tell you right now because someone close to me is in danger. How about this? I'll tell you once the invasion is over, and you promise me right now that you won't tell a soul about this until I tell you. So, deal? Sasuke thought it over a bit and said, alright, but you better tell... He wasn't allowed to finish as Naruto put a hand on his forehead and forcefully sent him back to where Kakashi was. He might have finished the enemies in the stadium by now. He flashed away and within 10 seconds, he had gathered every kunai that had been scattered in the area. After inspecting the clearing for one last time, he flashed again. Hold on, GG, I'm coming. And that's where I'm gonna end it, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next part. Roll the outro. I have a YouTube short section. If you didn't know, go check it out. It only works on mobile. If you have extra time, please watch it over and over again. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. Thanks.
On it, a bitch who was on the move, but you on it goddamn late. Got that one in my bed and she just wanna sleep. Fucking up all of the sheets. She only wake up to eat. Do this shit every week. Like why you do that? Crying you wanna be great, but sleeping until the next day. Why you do that? Got that much in the bank.